Well, it's been 1 week since you looked at me. Got you right on the side and said I'm angry. 5 days since you laughed at me. Saying goodbye together, call back to see me. 3 days since the living room. I realize it's not my fault, but didn't tell you yesterday. You've forgiven me. It'll still be 2 days till I say I'm sorry. Holding out, I watch the hoodwink, cause I make you stop think. You think you're looking at.
Hey guys, what's up? How's it going? It's Theo talking here, coming at you live from his room.
Look, I know my audio mixing isn't the best, and I know my mic quality isn't the best, because I still record in this echoey living room of mine that I've still done nothing about. Look, what I'm trying to say is, how is my audio mixing better than yours?
Having a good old time, playing some video games, everything like that, and I'm here with another gaming video to bring to you. And I think today we're going to actually step on some toes, which is going to be fun.
How are you doing that? Like, the sounds your mouth makes when you talk are louder than the actual words coming out of your mouth, and I don't know how you're doing it.
We're going to talk about one of the greatest topics I think every gamer has had a discussion about at some point in their lives or another, and that's the ever so highly, heavily debated, PC versus console, which you like better, which thing is better, not perfect.
Whenever somebody prefaces their video this heavily, you know it's gonna be a fucking Space Mountain adventure. Like, if you feel the need to preface your opinion this heavily, there's a good chance your opinion is wrong.
Personally, I think that, all gaming platforms are great. I mean, I have a gaming PC. I have, a PlayStation 4. I've built several gaming PCs and I've upgraded my PC several times.
Well, I mean, looking at your background right now, and also looking at the title of this video, I don't really think we need to guess where your video is going.
And of course, as everybody knows, my all-time favorite, the magical number 3 is Nintendo Switch.
Your favorite number 3? Okay.
And I love Nintendo first-party games. I love Nintendo consoles. I always have, and I'm pretty sure I'll always will be. But I wanted to see what all the hype was about in terms of the PC stuff. So within the last few years.
Oh, you're a Nintendo guy. I didn't catch that.
I got very deep and in depth with PC building, PC gaming, all that good stuff, just to see kind of like what it offered.
And judging by this video, judging by your background, did you guys hear that? That was another motorcycle. What was it, 2 videos ago? I asked if I could ever get through a video without a motorcycle going by. There's just a lot of motorcycles, dude. Let's just move on, because I completely lost my train of thought.
If there's such a huge, heavy cult following behind it.
There's not a cult following behind PC. PC is the biggest gaming platform in the world. Like, it's not even close. That's like the exact opposite of a cult following.
Usually I get curious and want to see what the big deal is. So I've done it for several years now. Pretty happy with it. I enjoy it. But of course, in terms of the personal experience, obviously, what's better, PC or console? Personally, I'm still team console.
And I cannot wait for your reasoning of all this. You know what sucks? I was going to give you props for putting Metroid Prime music in the background of your video, but with the way Nintendo is nowadays, I'm actually a tad nervous to put this video up, because I don't know if it's going to get DMCA'd. So if I get DMCA'd, it's your fault.
At the end of the day, I still think console's better than PC. I still think it's a lot better gaming experience than PC, and I'm going to step on some toes as to why, but we'll go ahead and get into the reasons. Obviously, I'm not just going to sit here and leave you hanging and not tell you why I feel this way.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I'm 2 minutes into your video and you haven't started your reasons why, so I think it's completely reasonable to have been at least a little worried you were going to leave us hanging.
I definitely have done it's literally years of just like in-depth in both, and kind of finally decided, you know what, at the end of the day, I still feel like I'm going to stream more console games. I still feel like I'm going to be more in tune with the console community. But
if it took you years of analyzing these two things, I think you're thinking too hard about it. All it took for me to go from console to PC was a look at the price tags, a look at the performance capabilities, and a look at the business practices of modern consoles. That's all it took. I've never looked back.
Of course, we'll get into the reasons. Like I told you, reason number 1 is because, 1, gaming PC is really ridiculously expensive.
Gaming PCs are ridiculously expensive. Let's take a look at your background again. Let's play a fun little game here. How much money do you think he has spent on all the amiibos in the background? And then, before you come back with, oh, but you don't have to spend money on amiibos, they're optional. Optional expenses? Where else can I find those?
Any BS that any PC gamer tells you about PC gaming is cheaper than console and give you a better experience than console for a less price is lying to you 100%.
I love when we talk in vague terms. Better experience. Define better experience. The term better experience can't be quantified the way a price can, so why are you using those two things? If we're talking about better experience in terms of objective technical performance, yes, you can go better than the consoles for less money than the consoles. But then people like to move the goalposts with what is technical performance, like what technical performance is good. There are people out there who legitimately think dynamic 4K 30 FPS. I mean, there's a lot of people out there who legitimately think that's good performance. I don't agree at all. And you said your favorite console ever is the Switch. Do we really have to talk about the Switch's technical performance? If you don't think I can match the technical performance of a Switch, even if we are matching money to money, how much is a Switch right now? $300? I can absolutely get you a $300 PC that beats the Switch's performance. Because it's not hard to do that. But no, you were talking about gameplay experience or gaming experience, which is completely subjective, so why am I even explaining this? Why am I expecting rational debate here? I'll put it this way. Just about everything on the Switch can be done on a PC in terms of gameplay. And just about every gaming PC ever made will have better performance than the Switch. And most of them will have better performance than the PS4, the Xbox, the PS5. Most of us will outperform that too. Because again, it's really not that difficult to do so.
They're not ready to talk about it, but dude, I'm telling you straight up.
Yeah, I'm not ready to talk about the thing that I've made probably 50 videos on already. Like, where do you get the idea that PC gamers aren't ready to talk about this? Like, I feel like that's one of the most common things we debate over. This guy said he's been researching this for years, by the way.
It's a lie. It's not true. And anything you can build that's less than a console,
My first computer costed me less than a console. So now you're talking about me.
whether it's secondhand or not, will usually not last like 2 years. You'll have to upgrade something. You'll have to rebuild your PC. You're going to have to do something.
No. I've said this many times. My first gaming PC I got in 2017, mid 2017, for $550. And the reason why it was $550 is because I spent extra on having it pre-built and getting a nice case and all that. The actual value of the computer was probably around $400, $450. Like, it still had DDR3 RAM. It had a GTX 1050. It had a, what was the CPU? It wasn't even an R3 or an R5 CPU. Like, it was the previous gen Ryzen. It was not an expensive PC, but that was my first PC. And it smoked the PS4 and Xbox One. Like, it wasn't a competition. It gave me better performance than the PS4 and Xbox One. And I was buying all those parts new. I could have gotten that easily under $400 if I had bought those parts used. But again, that was my first PC. I didn't know what I was doing. I bought it pre-built. I spent extra. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's a weird stigma around pre-builts that I don't understand. I mean, yes, like some pre-builts will take advantage of you. But if you're just looking for a reasonably priced computer and you don't want to put it together yourself, I see nothing wrong with people buying pre-builts. My current computer is more expensive than a console, yes, but I've also been playing on PC for a few years now. I've been upgrading my build over and over and over again. I don't actually know the exact value of my PC. Yes, it's more than a console, but it's also giving me way better performance than a console, so I mean, that makes sense. Are you capable of building a PC for less than a console? Yes, absolutely. And the thing is, the new consoles cost $500 a piece. I mean, if you want the real versions of them. Yeah, you can get a $299 Xbox Series S, but looking at the performance of games on that, why would you do that? It's for, like, don't do that. Don't buy the Series S. The Series S is legitimately a waste of money. $500 for an actual Xbox or an actual PS5. I can 100% build you a good computer under $500. And the way you're dismissing this is interesting to me. You're saying PC guys don't want to have they're not ready for the conversation. Who here is shutting down conversation? Is it you or is it PC guys?
So don't believe for a freaking second that is the biggest lie I think the PC community tells gamers, is that PC gaming is cheaper. It is not.
Not giving any evidence. Biggest lie. Don't listen to them. Oh, but PC gamers aren't ready for this conversation. Just a very interesting way to frame this.
We'll go ahead and take a look at some of the stuff I have, and I don't have like the top of the line things. There's like maybe my graphics card, but that's it.
Yes, please tell us what you have. I'm fascinated what your PC specs are.
But let's go ahead and take a look at the stuff that I have, and then I'll show you like the prices of, you know, what I have and how much they are today, and, you know, what can you expect from something that's like a monitor that's just the basic 1080.
I'm sorry, monitor? You need a monitor for a console too. I know you're not about to put monitor costs on top of the PC cost, but not the console. People are like, oh, PC gaming is so expensive because of monitors. Yeah, sorry, I didn't know that consoles could just project themselves onto any surface.
You know, 60 to 75 frames per second, that it only goes up to that.
You realize that 60 to 75 frames per second, that's higher than most console games.
You know, like my less expensive graphics cards and everything like that, but yeah.
Which are what?
Anyway, I'll show you what I have, and I'll show you how much those are right now. Alright, let's take a look under the hood of my awesome gaming PC. So I'm rocking the RTX 2080 Super.
Okay, I'm going to read out his specs because I think I can do this a little more entertainmentally. Entertainmently. He has an RTX 2080 Super. I assume that's the 8 gig variant. I think the 8 gig's the only version. He puts his driver version there, which I'm not sure why, because drivers are very liquid. An AMD Ryzen 7 2700, 32 gigs of RAM, and a 1080p monitor with a refresh rate of 75 Hertz. He does not have his motherboard, does not have his RAM clock speed, and does not show whether he has a hard drive or an SSD. Just like if you're going to reveal your specs, why did you stop at like the 70% mark?
But let's go ahead and go over to Newegg and check the prices on like stuff that I have now, and of course stuff that I've used previously.
Bro, if you're really going to count the cost of things you had before on top of the cost of what you have now, I'm going to throw your entire argument out the window. Because that means you now have to include the cost of every console you've ever owned, every accessory you've ever owned, all those amiibos on the wall. I think you know that you can build a PC for less than a console, but you're doing everything you can to make it seem like that it can't be done. You just said you were going to list the price of your current build, but now you're adding on the price of pieces that you said you don't have, you don't use them anymore. So what are we doing? Does a console cost $500, or does a console cost $500 plus the cost of every console you've ever owned?
We'll start with the graphics card first. Previously before this, and I still have it, I had the GTX 1660 OC edition. Just looking at the normal like current models, we're looking at like, you know, $339, $249, so almost $300 for some of this model. So that's about over half the price of like a PlayStation 4 Pro.
Yeah, GPUs are usually the most expensive part of a PC. Also, yeah, $230 for a 1660, it's a pretty good deal. In my opinion, this card performs better than a console. Yeah, maybe it doesn't hit 4K 60 Ultra like the fucking PS5, but if you're less concerned about high resolution, more concerned about frame rate, absolutely the 1660 will do pretty much everything you want. Again, with the whole loose definition of what good gaming performance and what a good gaming experience is. I hate when people do this. If you're using the Switch as your benchmark of gaming performance, 1660 will spank it.
And that's the Pro. That's not even the normal PlayStation 4. That's almost the full price of an actual normal PlayStation 4.
I mean, the regular PlayStation was what, $300, $400? And does the cost of the previous PlayStation go on top of the cost of the PS4 Pro? Or are we just not talking about that? Are the rules different for different platforms? Of course they're different. Of course the rules are different for different platforms.
And of course, you go secondhand on either the card or the console, you're still going to pay about relatively the same in terms of differences.
You'll pay the same in terms of differences.
I understand.
But let's go ahead and take a look at the graphics card versions I have currently, the 2080 Super. And yeah, we're looking at the $700, $800, dollar range, and of course some of them going up to $1,000.
Yeah, the 2080 Super is over $700. What about other cards that can hit that kind of performance? I mean, the 3070 is supposed to be on par with the 2080 Super, and the 3070 is only $500. The 3060 is less than that, and I think the 3060 is pretty close to the 2080 Super. And again, if you're playing in 1080p like I am, or even 1440p, you don't have to go these super high cards. I have a 2070. The reason why there's so many cards on the PC, the reason why there's so many different types of hardware on the PC is because everybody on the PC could potentially be looking for something different from their games. Some people play on 1080p 144 Hz, like me. Some people play on 1440p 120 Hz. Some people play 4K 60. Some people play 4K above 60. There's a lot of variety on the PC because we don't have to run our games a certain way like you do. Console games have one, sometimes two, ways to run the game. PC has pretty much as many ways as you want because we actually have graphic settings. The reason why there are so many cards here is because the PC is a very diverse platform.
And, of course, those are almost two PS4 Pros or two Xbox One X Series Pros, whatever the heck the Xbox calls them.
This is so interesting to me, and I see a lot of people do this. You're looking at these cards, they're all hovering around $700 to $750, maybe $800 for the higher end models, and then you go to a $1,200 variant, and you're like, look how expensive this one is. Yeah, that's an anomaly. That's like if I pointed to the price of a scalped PS5 and said that's the price of a PS5.
I don't know, I've never really been an Xbox fan all that much. But yeah, I mean, graphics cards alone.
You also just scrolled past a $600 one and didn't say anything about it. So you scrolled past it like a $1,200 one. You're like, you hovered the mouse over it like, whoa, look at that. But then you also just scrolled right by a $600 one without saying anything. Because who needs honesty?
You're looking at dropping a pretty penny. And then these are just like the 1660 is considered one of the lower tier graphics cards.
No. It's not. 1660 is not a low-end graphics card, at least not to me. In my opinion, at least, if I can match the console gameplay, it's not a low-end card.
The only graphics cards underneath that is the 1650. So, I mean, it's expensive, like I mentioned. And we'll go into the CPUs. Let's go ahead. This is the current Ryzen 7s. They're the 3000 series. They're looking at $300 by themselves.
I have a Ryzen 7. I did not pay $300 for it.
Of course, here's the Ryzen, 3000 Series X, again, $35 more. And of course, we have the Ryzen 9s. These are like Ryzen 7, Ryzen 9 prices.
And pop quiz, is a Ryzen 7 CPU necessary to beat the console in terms of performance? You have 5 seconds to answer. Time's up. I don't know if that was 5 seconds. I kind of just took a sip of coffee. No, it's not necessary. This whole segment that you're doing right now is really just you going through the price of your specific computer build. But what are the benchmarks of your computer? Again, define good performance. Again, it's completely going over your head that different people are looking for different things from PCs.
All right, so now that we got into that and the pricing, and I proved to you that even just 3 things alone combined will cost you more than a console.
First of all, nice iMovie subtitle there. Second of all, GPU, CPU, monitor. You put the monitor price in the price of a PC. That's not dishonest.
It's just insane. And like I said, my case is out of date.
How the fuck is your case out of date?
My freaking, I showed you my older graphics card, my newer graphics card.
Okay, how many old consoles have you bought? How many fucking amiibos do you have? Like, not to keep circling back to the amiibos, but just I hope you see the irony here of how much fucking money is on your wall right now, and you're complaining about PC prices that aren't even that high relative to the console.
And of course, this is not considering the power supply, the motherboard.
Power supplies and motherboards are usually not very expensive. Like, those are probably the cheapest parts of the PC.
The RAM.
And the RAM's not that expensive either.
The monitor.
Wait, the monitor was in there.
The mouse, the keyboard.
Oh, mouse and keyboard? So how much are your controllers?
The mouse pad, the webcam.
The mouse pad, the webcam. Okay, how much is your desk? That bookshelf in the background that you're holding your games on, how much was that?
The microphone if you're going to actually stream.
And what if you're not streaming?
The games, and it's...
Oh, how much are your Wii U games? How much are your Switch games? How much are your amiibos?
It's expensive.
Yeah, expensive. Expensive. Very expensive. God, dude, just the... This guy wouldn't know irony if it hit him with a bus.
So again, it is a lie. They will tell you it's not. It is. I don't care what they say about the secondhand market. You can do the same thing with console and it'll still be cheaper.
I don't care what they say about the secondhand market. Again, who is it that's not ready to have the conversation?
It is a lie, and I will freaking preach this to the day I die, because that is my biggest pet peeve about the PC community. They say that with such conviction, and it's so bullshit.
Okay, let me explain a few things. On average, a gaming PC will cost you more than a console. Yes, that's true. On average, that's true. It doesn't have to be more expensive than a console, but you can absolutely do it. Also, most avid PC gamers will have a more expensive PC because when something becomes your hobby, you spend more money on it. Again, circling back to all your goddamn fucking amiibos on the wall that you just refuse to acknowledge the price of. So yes, the hardware of a PC on average is more expensive than the hardware of a console. However, where things get cheaper, Again, the variety in hardware, the options of hardware, the much cheaper games, the multiple storefronts that make your games cheaper, the free online, the lack of subscriptions you have to pay to play your own fucking games online. And all that is painfully ironic coming from a Nintendo fanboy. Like a Nintendo fanboy complaining about the price of accessories and games on a different platform? Are you kidding me? The PC is also much more capable of technical performance than consoles are because of the options in hardware, the options in game settings. But again, you're not going to define what is good performance. The hardware of a PC is usually more expensive than the hardware of a console, but everything else on the platform is significantly cheaper. And that's the main reason people say that console gaming is more expensive than PC now, because we don't have to pay to play online. We have cheaper games. We have more frequent sales. We have more digital retailers. We have more free-to-play options. We have more games in general, so we don't have to buy the overpriced ones. We have more companies providing keyboard and mice to us than you have providing controllers and amiibos to you. So yes, our accessories are cheaper. Our hardware lasts longer than a console, because if something breaks in my PC, I can open it up and see what's wrong and potentially fix it myself. And even if it is a hardware problem, I can swap one part out as opposed to having to buy a whole new system. When I want to upgrade my PC, I swap out one part. I don't buy a whole new fucking console because it's the pro version. The entry fee to PC is usually higher, but the price over time is so much cheaper. Again, who is it here that's not ready to have the conversation?
And that's why I'm here telling you today, don't believe it for a second. So if you want a good gaming experience with PC, you're going to have to pay for it.
Damn, I have to pay for a thing that I'm buying. Shit.
That's fine. I mean, I didn't mind paying for it. I'm very happy with what I paid for, and I'm looking to upgrade some stuff in the future.
You didn't mind paying for it? I'm happy with what I paid for. Who was it that was just bitching about everything he's paid for?
But it's not cheap. Don't believe it is. Don't listen to him. It is expensive.
Cheap and expensive are relative terms now because console gaming prices have shot up so dramatically. If I say something is cheaper than something else, that doesn't mean it overall is cheap. PC gaming is not cheap, but neither is console gaming. PC gaming is cheaper than console gaming. Doesn't mean it's cheap.
All right, so let's go ahead and go into reason number 2. Really hard to find. I mean, while I was...
What the fuck? Dude, do that again.
Really hard to find. I mean, while I was...
Dude, do that again.
Really hard to find.
Do it again.
How are you doing that with your mouth?
Never mind how I'm doing it.
Searching, for those component lists and everything like that. Searching with those, I noticed a lot of things were out of stock.
Are you really about to complain about things being out of stock on PC?
Like the reason why the Ryzen 7 that I had was, $500 was because it was sold out by all the actual official retailers and stuff.
Oh my goodness. Oh my god. The thing was out of stock, so I had to buy a more expensive one. That means PC gaming is more expensive. Dude, that's crazy. Bro, what? Console gaming shit never goes out of stock. I never have to pay more than the retail price for console stuff. What?
There's a new egg, hardly had anything on sale. It was usually all through secondhand marketers. Same thing with Amazon. Best Buy is usually always sold out.
Best Buy and Amazon are not secondhand marketers.
Components, especially now, are really hard to find and usually overpriced.
Wait, define overpriced. Also, what's that in the reflection of your MacBook? I don't like it. You were just describing scalp prices and then said, they're overpriced.
Everybody's like, the COVID thing, blah, blah, blah. But it was even when I was upgrading, it was always a slow upgrade process because it was always hard to find PC components. I couldn't find a power supply for a long time.
You couldn't find... Okay, your entire opinion is officially discarded. You couldn't find a power supply. Either you didn't actually try or you're just lying. You couldn't find a power supply.
And the graphics card that I have requires a 750 watt power supply.
I'm sorry, the 2080 Super... Hang on. 2080 Super power consumption. The 2080 Super, on average, we recommend a 600 to 650 watt power supply unit. Where are you getting 750 from? Also, just as a fun little experiment, I'm going to Google 750 watt power supply. Shopping. Oh, goodness gracious, look at all these results. I just found one for $68. And here's another one for $90. There's another one for $90. Here's one for $63. I'm astonished that you couldn't find a power supply, and I'm also astonished you think power supplies are restrictively expensive. And I also don't know where you got 750 from.
I had to go to like a used PC repair store to find one, and I found a $750 Corsair modular.
$750 what?
Modular power supply for like $50. The guy was nice. He knows I go in there a lot, so.
Oh, so you found a power supply for $50. So what was the fucking moral of the story?
He was just like, oh hey, yeah, sure, dude. You're always coming in here. I'll sell you this for $50. Like, thanks. So I was lucky there.
You weren't lucky that you found a $50 power supply. That sounds about right for a power supply.
But like, it's really hard to find those pieces.
You just told the fucking story about how it wasn't hard to... Oh my god. Okay, let's just keep moving forward, I guess. There's another 12. I'm not even halfway through your video. No.
It's really hard to like actually build a PC, especially now, but even in the past, it was so hard to do.
I've never once had a problem finding PC parts.
Let's see, but I'll go ahead and get off that high horse.
You are not on a high horse of any kind.
Next thing I want to talk about is it's machine focused.
Okay.
Like, you know, the RGB, the LEDs.
Both of which are optional.
Like, how cool your machine looks, how clean it is. There's
Accessories. Accessories for looking cooler. Accessories. Interesting. I didn't know accessories were only expensive on the PC.
There's whole YouTube videos on, like, you know, that people have just roasting PC build, and it's just like the wires are not exactly pretty and pristine and clean and 100%. Like,
yeah, and those people are dicks.
It's all about the machine. Like, it's the love for the machine. Games, they use games as benchmarks.
Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we say, like, hey, look how well this game runs on PC versus how it runs on console? Why wouldn't we do that?
Like, so they'll use The Witcher 3, Shadows of the Tomb Raider, Rise of the Tomb Raider. I forgot what the newest one is.
Yeah, because those games run like butt on console. Why wouldn't we be like, hey, look how well it runs on PC? Like, why wouldn't we do that?
The newest Tomb Raider game's apparently a benchmark game.
Yes, because these are very pretty games. They're very eye-candy games, and they run like butt on console. A common thing that PC players do is they point out how big mainstream AAA releases run like butt on console, and then run really well on PCs that don't cost very much. Again, relative to the cost of a console.
Far Cry 5 is a benchmark game. Battlefield 5 is a benchmark game. So these games are used as benchmarks, but I hardly ever hear the PC community talk about games, talk about getting excited for this, getting excited for that.
You have not spent any time in the PC community. Like, you just haven't. I hear all the time about games coming up from PC friends of mine. You put no effort into this video, into this research that you apparently did. Like, it's painfully obvious you didn't actually do any of this. Or if you did, you went in with your desired conclusion already in your head.
Like, oh, I can't wait for this game, or stuff like that. It's usually always about the machine. Like, I heard more hype about the new i7 10th generation or 10th generation CPUs than I do about any games coming soon.
Yeah, and you heard more hype about the PS5 than any of the PS5 exclusives. You heard more hype about the Series X than any upcoming Xbox games. There's more hardware releases on the PC, so yes, you hear more about hardware releases on the PC than on the console.
That's just like, it's the love's about the machine.
Because the machine is customizable. Everyone can make their own machine. You can make the machine exactly how you want it to be. Why wouldn't we talk about hardware? Again, we talk about hardware on the PC because that's an option we have. You don't have that option on console, so yeah, no shit, you never hear about stuff like that in the console circles. It doesn't exist in the console circles.
I mean, which is fine. I guess if you're investing that much money in it, obviously you want your machine to be, you know, freaking awesome, but I just...
Which is fine. I'm putting it on the negative list, but I mean, I guess it's fine.
That's just not what I'm into. Yeah, sure. I mean, I want a good PC and I want it to run games, but I also want it to stream well, like, which is why I need it. I think even with a 2080 Super now, when I look at Task Manager, my GPU is still being used at like max 25%. It's usually like 20 to 25%. So that's why I kind of wanted that strong graphics card to begin with, because Streamlabs uses that as a streaming encoder, so to say. So kind of glad I got that.
My stream PC has a fucking 1050 in it. Like, it has like an Ryzen 3 and a 1050. That's my stream PC. And I mean, yeah, in case you didn't know that about me, I have a 2 PC setup. The second PC of mine is kind of a shittier one that I've just built out of spare parts after upgrading a whole bunch of stuff. Because if I'm going to stream or record gameplay or stuff, I would rather do that on a designated PC. You don't have to do that, but I mean, I like to do it. I think it runs things pretty well. But yeah, my stream PC, my recording PC, that records and streams in 1080p 60 FPS with pretty much no struggle. I have a Ryzen 3 in there, so I don't think you understand this. It doesn't surprise me that it bothers you when people talk about hardware, because you clearly have no understanding of how these things work.
But yeah, I mean, it's just, and versus Nintendo stuff, for example.
Yeah, have fun streaming on your Nintendo Switch.
Like when they talked about the new developers coming in from, like, you know, Battlefield 5 developers, stuff like that. I mean, I can't remember exactly who all it was, but they were talking about the game. You know, they're excited about the game.
You just showed an article talking about a Metroid Prime 4 developer. The game that we literally have not seen anything for. You were just giving PC guys shit for using games as benchmarks, but then you used a game as a benchmark. A game that literally has not been seen by anybody. Yeah, God forbid we make benchmarks out of games that actually exist.
They were excited that, you know, the Metroid Prime trilogy might get released in June thanks to this, you know, Swedish, like, website or whatever, like, said that it was June 19th was the release date.
Again, you're benchmarking a game that is a rumor. You just benchmarked a Prime trilogy collection for the Switch. There's no announcement of that. You don't know if that's real.
I feel like console communities are excited about the games, the product.
You're excited about the rumored existence of certain products because one company completely dictates your marketplace.
We all have, like, consoles, we all have the same machine. We're not, you know, comparing our wiener sizes, basically, by our builds.
I mean, this whole video, like, with your background and the way you talk about Nintendo, like, it really feels like you're trying to compare wiener sizes.
We all have the same machine, so that just leaves room for only one thing to appreciate, and that's the content on those systems.
Listen to what he's saying there. There's only one thing to appreciate because we all have the same system. So you don't even think about the system, which is interesting because earlier in this video, you were talking about game performance and hardware pricing. But now you're saying you don't even think about the hardware because it's just the games. 5 minutes ago, it was the hardware. And once again, circling everything back to who is it that's really not willing to have the conversation.
And then that brings me to my next point in terms of, like, comparing wiener sizes by your build. The PC community sucks. Like, it's bad. Like, it's toxic. And the toxicity is rampant.
The toxicity is rampant. The PC community is toxic. It's so bad. PC guys aren't willing to talk about pricing. If they say PC gaming isn't expensive, they're lying. It's a lie. Don't believe them. There's still another 10 minutes of his video. I'm not going to watch it. You have such a superiority complex. We're never going to get through to you. I'm not even going to try. So I'm going to make one more jab at your amiibo collection, which, again, nothing wrong with collecting amiibos. It's just a little ironic coming from a guy saying he doesn't compare wiener sizes. But I'm going to edit this and move on. I have a big backlog of videos that I've been meaning to respond to. I'm going to try and grind out a bunch of videos this weekend. I've been really busy with school and work and shit, trying to get a more consistent content flow here. And I have, I think, 6 other videos in my response backlog. So, yeah, I'm done with you. This video is terrible. I'm moving on. Bye.